So this is, should MMO add-ons be banned? And, well, let's just first see what he has to say about it before I start giving my opinion. Obviously, I made a couple videos about this. I feel like some are good. Some are really bad. Okay. Let's see. Wait. Let's back up.
Now.
What the fuck is this?
I prefer you with less add-ons.
What the fuck? What is this?
I said less add-ons.
What is going on? Oh my god. Oh my god. Chat bubble?
Perfection.
Add-ons. Everybody's got an opinion these days on add-ons, haven't they? It's been an argument that has been brought up to the fire ever since the last Race to World First in Sepulchre, as people find it outrageous, the amount of add-on use in World of Warcraft that is utilized in order to make fights easier. And World of Warcraft is not alone in this. In fact, it's a widespread discussion that happens across every MMOs. And wouldn't you know it, within the past couple of weeks, that fire has been lit under Final Fantasy XIV as well.
I'm gonna like this. Like, I don't care what else is in the video. I need to like it.
Talking about add-ons and their usage, because once again, in most cases, gamers have very clearly decided on which camp they're in, but it's just not that easy a situation. So, in World of Warcraft, it's a case of we're watching these teams on payroll, like they're actively paying these people, usually 3 or 4 people, to come to the World First events, and that means they are considered as important as everybody else who is there at those events, and their job is to make add-ons. They do other tasks besides, but when you'll see those leaders, be it Max or be it Scripe, drop into different channels and say, this is what we need. And
wait, is that his FC in the background?
While that's happening, other people, these tech analysts, are also letting people know what they need. And these teams scurry and busy and get to work creating very specific weak auras or whatever it might be to then make the fights easier for the guys.
Well, he knows all about that because didn't he cast the World First for the Jailer recently?
If they get a nice diagram of where they should go, if you look at the Jailer, it pre-plans which bomb holes he should be going in, so there's no confusion.
Look,
and in many
Mike is an expert caster. I watched him do this, and I was just so amazed.
cases, they're building extra boss mods that not only say this mechanic is happening soon, but also giving warnings to individuals. You need to be in your position in 10 seconds. Things like that are very commonplace when it comes to the most difficult of difficult fights.
Yeah,
but Final Fantasy XIV is also...
Yeah, but a lot of people say, well, because those add-ons exist in World of Warcraft, it forces the devs to create the content knowing that those add-ons are going to be used by the top players, and therefore they have to adjust the difficulty of the content to incorporate the idea that they're going to be using these add-ons to let people know exactly where to go at the instant that the mechanic goes off. And so it actually shapes game development and shapes the decisions that the devs would make to keep up with the add-ons. And what you end up with is a sort of arms race where the devs are trying to keep up with the new add-ons that players are using. But right now in Final Fantasy XIV, we got a Wild West situation where some people are using the advantage. Well, I guess in the World First, or well, we don't know what people are using, honestly, on Final Fantasy XIV, because a lot of the World First teams are not streaming. And who knows? Who knows what they're using or what they're not?
Run into this recently. The new Ultimate fight.
It's
the new Dragon Song Ultimate that just took place in Final Fantasy XIV was and is widely considered the most difficult fight Final Fantasy XIV has ever managed to produce, and took the best of the best of the best just as long to kill the one fight as it did for a lot of big races in the MMO space. Now, during the streaming of this...
Is Mike going to try it?
Yes. People could hear that add-ons were in use. Simple addons that were giving sort of vocal notifications as to when things were coming or which way to face, things like that. And people did not like that because Final Fantasy XIV is well known for being an add-on free game. Quotation marks. Quotation marks. Add-on free game. And what people are really talking about, of course, is boss mods. You don't want it to do with boss mods. Final Fantasy XIV goes to massive lengths to make sure that what's happening is visually shown to you. The boss will raise his right arm if he's going to destroy the right-hand side of the room. He will turn to you if he's going to target something. There will be icons and indicators trying to show you what is supposed to be happening. Now, of course, in the most difficult fights, there's so many things going on, such as trios of mechanics, that can be very difficult to work through, hence where the difficulty in Final Fantasy XIV fights comes from. Very complicated things all happening at once where lots of players need to coordinate in a very specific way. And seeing add-ons in use got a lot of people upset. So, Yoshi P made a statement.
He did,
and their statement remains as it has been for a long time.
Basically, the raid fights in Final Fantasy XIV are designed with the idea the players are not going to be using a lot of these add-ons.
We don't endorse the use of third-party
gameplay.
add-ons. We can't specifically check if you're using some of these things, but we don't endorse them. And this isn't just a case of boss mods, but it also extends to the fact that they don't like people using damage meters because often people wield them as a weapon, and we're going to come back to that in a second. But anything that should make fights even easier, because they're obviously very worried about going to where World of Warcraft is right now in discussing add-ons. And recently, in the interview with Asmongold and Ian Hazakostas, they brought up the subject of add-ons as well. It's a very hot topic in both communities, and that's because it affects everybody differently. That's the thing. We kind of know, right? I think any logical person can kind of see what FF14 is trying to avoid, and on the vice versa, a lot of World of Warcraft casual players look at something like the Race to World First. They're hearing about things that are like...
Do you feel like the situation with add-ons in World of Warcraft has gotten a little bit out of control? I'm curious about what chat thinks about that, because right now in World of Warcraft, if you want to join a raiding guild, there's like a list of add-ons that you are often required to download. Like, you are expected to have DBM. You are expected to have like various tools that everybody else is going to be using. And it makes sense that those expectations are there, because without them, you're putting yourself at a disadvantage compared to the other teams that are not using those things. So it's like, even if people didn't want to use them, it's like you're kind of forced to if you want to remain competitive. So
teams of people making add-ons, and a lot of people will look at a World of Warcraft UI and go, what the hell is happening? Like 60% of the screen is add-ons giving me information. I don't want to play a game like that. I want to play a game that's nice and clean and open, certainly if these communities are interspersed. Now, wielding as a weapon, this is where we have to set the foundation for how wide...
Well, I think that one thing that he's probably going to address and that needs to be said is that in Final Fantasy XIV, there's a lot of jank shit, okay? Like, and I went over all of this in my video that I put out, my last video, which was about the most popular add-ons that are most requested. And the most popular add-ons that are most requested from people are, by and large, stuff that fix jank problems with the base UI. It's not people trying to get any kind of gameplay advantage. I asked the community, and the most popular request was like, let me just see the timer of my buff in the party window. Let me just see like bigger numbers on my cooldowns on the ability bar. Let me just see if I have a shield on my actual HP bar. Like basic stuff like this that doesn't actually interact with or affect gameplay. These are problems that I don't solve, and I do not think that they have any kind of negative impact on other players. So a situation is pretty different, but I understand how a lot of the similar concerns can be there just in the realm of discussing add-ons.
Because when people talk about add-ons, they're kind of using a blanket statement. And some add-ons are good. Let's just face facts. Some add-ons are good. Not everything provided by the game developer is perfect.
Yeah, one thing I want to say too. Yeah, someone said, I just want to see my HP, my shield on my HP bar. Yeah, I sure would like a shield on my HP bar. I found out that there are some players who play like shielding classes who they join a party with somebody who's not even with them. So that way they can use the party frame to see if the shield is on them. Because if you're playing solo, there's literally no way to see the shield on you. You just have to imagine it.
We can all agree on that everything is perfect.
It's really stupid.
I have been attacked with this.
What?
And I'm not the only one. Because in FF14, no third-party stuff is allowed. However, there's a lot of stuff that's kind of good, and it's just not in the game. Now, I was attacked because I had an add-on installed. In my history of playing Final Fantasy XIV, I have used one add-on. And it was a simple add-on that had nothing to do with encounters, nothing to do with trivializing anything. It was chat.
Oh, whoa. Who's that cute cat girl? Ooh. Hell yeah. One of the best installments of this series. Damn, I should download that. I should download that game. It looks really good.
Chat bubbles. I don't like looking at chat in a side box on the corner of my game. I often don't notice it. My attention is usually focused on the screen as a whole.
I think, isn't Final Fantasy 14 the only MMO that doesn't have chat bubbles default? I think it is. I think it's actually the only MMO that does not have this feature default. Even RuneScape has yellow text over people's head.
And the chat box is kind of unnecessary to me in a lot of ways, and that's how I've played MMOs for probably 10 to 12 years. And the reason for that is simple. Often, I'm in voice comms with people. If I'm going to talk...
Look how happy Preach was, by the way, during this. I watched this play, and I had never seen him that happy. I've been watching his videos for years and years. I had never seen him as happy as he was in this. So you cannot tell me that there's anything wrong with chat bubbles, and I will die on this hill.
Talk to people, I talk to them. I literally use my mouth. And if people are trying to do something that's important to me, I can see a chat bubble. World of Warcraft has chat bubbles. It's never been a problem. And therefore, I can see not only who's talking to me, but where they're stood. And that makes me much more engaged with the people I'm surrounded by. Final Fantasy 14 does not have chat bubbles. There are a few reasons behind this, but it made me annoyed and frustrated because often people would be, if I was going into a group setting or something like that, a lot of people would be saying things simultaneously. And I can't watch what they're doing, especially if they're doing some slight RP thing or something more interesting, is looking away and going on there. I just personally don't like it. And I think it's way more fun when you can see people doing an action and talking at the same time on the screen. So I was like, God, I miss chat bubbles. It was of all the things I missed after playing World of Warcraft for over a decade, the thing that I missed the most was chat bubbles.
Especially literally the only thing he missed.
So many people around. So people are like, yeah, you can get a plugin that makes that work. And I raised the questions like, isn't that not allowed? It's like, look, this is how this kind of works. Damage meters exist in
Another thing is, as a streamer, it is a huge benefit to have the chat bubbles on the screen. Because streamers we are hiding the chat. The chat is secret. We got to keep the chat secret. We got to keep it safe. This is the rule. But this sucks because you can't see what people are just saying out in the world. For like everybody in the stream would probably be interested to see that.
14. They do.
And I miss it.
We have logs for Final Fantasy 14.
I miss it because I'm reading the chat. I'm reading Twitch chat. I don't have time to read two chats.
We have lots of stuff. We have things that make the auction house better. Because you've got to remember, FF14 was designed around consoles. So a lot of stuff doesn't really make itself more conducive to a PC environment sometimes. So there are add-ons and stuff that make this easier. There are add-ons to take better pictures, right? There are add-ons to make things just a little bit more convenient. But generally speaking, most of the community is okay with the fact that there's no damage meters, or if you have a damage meter, you don't use that as a weapon. Now, after the statement last week, things have been used as a weapon, especially towards streamers, because people can see that we're using add-ons. Now, I just instantly uninstalled mine. I just figure, look, my take on this is simple. In terms of the FF14 stuff, and we'll come back to WoW, is that if it's something they agree with, they're going to add it to the game. Now, I may use these things in the future because they're clearly not what FF14 was attacking, but I have a bad experience, let's just say, with thinking things are okay and them not.
Blizzard rescinds Preach Gaming's invite to Content Creator Summit after banning him and other Warcraft players like Method Josh over the leveling potion issue. I don't know anything about that.
Things are okay, and them not being. I have been banned in the past, as is well documented, when I thought things were like, oh, okay, they clearly don't care about this thing, and so we'll go ahead and do it. But I'm going to read the what's happening with the player base. I'm going to see if this kind of moves on, because as far as I'm concerned, and I think Square Enix probably agrees with me on this, chat bubbles ain't shit. They're not what they're targeting. Their post describing this problem with add-ons was specifically around encounters and making the game easier in some way, especially where they're trying to produce these most difficult fights. What they don't want is something like weak auras coming in. But, of course, it's been wielded as a weapon. Several streamers have been attacked and reported constantly and taken down and had their accounts banned. People who took part in the Ultimate have had their accounts taken down. Now, you may agree or disagree with that, and that's not my position here. I'm looking to talk about add-ons in general. and then coming back to World of Warcraft. So that's what's happened, and people are always going to do that, especially if they don't like that streamer, especially if they disagree with them, or they say something they don't like. They're going to wield this as a weapon, and we have seen that happen, and that's not great. That's not great, is to have this kind of attitude of attack, 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 when it's clearly not what this was designed around.
There has been all this witch hunting. I'm sure he's going to mention it, but the witch hunting that surrounded all of this has been pretty disgusting to witness, but it's going to happen anytime you have any kind of controversy where there are people who feel like they have a little bit of ammunition to use against somebody that they don't like. They'll use anything. It does. I mean, any kind of tiny bit of perceived power that some shithead thinks that they have, that they can use over someone they don't like and pretend to be the arbiter of justice over, they will jump at that opportunity, because that's just how the internet works. That's how trolls work, and it sucks, but I don't think that is ever going to change. The best thing that you can do is protect yourself, and I have said to many streamers, my general advice to streamers is do not show these plugins on stream. Do not give these people any kind of ammunition that they could potentially use against you, because it's not worth it.
And they're basically asking you to use common logical sense in these situations. Over in World of Warcraft, a lot of people after the last Race War First were just like, let's flat out ban add-ons. Let's talk about that for a second. World of Warcraft was designed from day one with add-on usage in mind, similar to many games that you'll find on Steam that endorse workshops and things like that. And who can play Skyrim anymore unmodded? Somebody out there will, and somebody does play World of Warcraft with 0 add-ons. Somebody everywhere does that thing. But the game is designed with it in mind. The standard WoW UI has gotten better, and they're making more improvements in Dragonflight, but let's face facts, it's kind of dog shit, right? It's kind of dog shit. And the reason it's dog shit is because they expect you to use add-ons to alter it and change it to however you want it to be, and they encourage that behavior.
Yeah.
Now, it's not to say World of Warcraft hasn't taken a stance when people cross the line. That has happened many, many times. We all know about AVR, or if you don't, AVR in Wrath of the Lich King, which literally projected textures of where you should stand to avoid.
By the way, there's a similar add-on that did something like this for people that were doing Ultimate. And that is obviously crossing the line. This is something that should never be allowed. It is straight up cheating.
Void mechanics onto the game.
It was so bad. Yeah, even in World of Warcraft, they had to get rid of that shit.
I'm not joking. That add-on existed. That add-on existed, which is like, here's a big red circle on the floor. Stand there and you're fine.
Dude, how hard is it to stand next to the spores for Fester Cut? Holy shit.
Obviously, that massively trivialized so many encounters, because this add-on was able to read where projectiles were going, where nasty things were going to happen, and say, this is the safe space. If you go and stand there, and we'll literally put a big circle on the floor, that's where you go and stand, and you avoid all this horrible things that are happening. And people were overcoming bosses they should have no hope of defeating. Compared to saying that Wing Buffet is coming in 10 seconds, or the big explosion is coming in 20 seconds, that is far beyond that line. A boss mod will tell you when things are happening, or when things happen, you have a certain nasty debuff, but what it's not doing is saying, like, everybody go here, and you could literally trace a map where everybody needed to go in order to avoid ever getting hit by these mechanics. And that was mad. So they drew a line. If we go back to Star Augur, we know that Blizzard decided that they had to cut off parts of the API again because people trivialized the hardest mechanic in that fight.
The thing is, though, that World of Warcraft controls the API for the add-ons. So, the API. I don't know why I said that. So, it's more possible for them to be like, this one isn't okay, this one isn't okay, and, like, to restrict it in certain ways to prevent certain things from happening, and to, like, take appropriate action when those things are being publicly used, because all the add-ons are in the spotlight. All the add-ons are publicly
the Grand Conjunction, where you had to pair up with people with certain icons above your head, where they had add-ons that would simply say, you go to the big blue square and you are fine, and everything will be fine, and nobody's going to get hit, and you're going to win and overcome the most difficult part of this fight. This fight is entirely designed around this mechanic. It uses area denial to make this mechanic even harder, and if you trivialize that mechanic using add-ons, then the fight is worthless, and now we have to rethink, and this is the important thing, we have to rethink how we do fights in the future, because we can no longer use this type of mechanic because you guys are going to make it super easy. There's a fine line to be had. There is always going to be that, but it's not an easy line to find, in my opinion. That's where it comes down to.
It's not an easy line to find. Wait a minute, but let's go back a second. You just described an add-on that, like, any sane person would agree that is incredibly harmful to the game. It trivializes the mechanics, and it's giving you a very clear gameplay advantage. Like, I think that for the majority of cases, the line is pretty clear, and most people do know if something is giving them a gameplay advantage or not. And a lot of people act like it's more vague than it is, and I feel like, well, we'll see what Mike has to say about it.
That's crazy. Just like there should be some flexibility about more stricter rules over in FF14. There's a fine line to be had.
Okay.
There is always going to be that, but it's not an easy line to find, in my opinion. Okay. That's where it comes down to. Is clearly stuff I'm doing and other people are doing enhances their game experience without any negative effect happening on the design of the game or implementation. But people are right. It's like, that makes it so that you can keep kind of pushing that and then making them come back. And frankly, the FF14 devs can't be fucking bothered to deal with that, and I don't blame them. They would rather say, look, we don't endorse any of this, and if we see something we don't like, we're just going to crack down on it and keep it that way, because it makes our lives infinitely easier. And if there's something you guys are all doing, maybe we can implement it into the game ourselves, which is what I'm hoping for with things like chat bubbles, because it makes our experience...
That's the easiest way for them to go about it. That's what they're doing. That's the route that they have planned to take. That's the route that... minimizes their legal liability in case there's an add-on that is stealing people's data or like is actually has some spyware or some problems in it. It minimizes their legal liability because they say, well, we told you not to download any kind of add-on. It saves them all the time, money, and resources of having to, make their own legal and official API for the add-ons and all the time spent looking at every single add-on to see if it's good or not. I think probably the way that they do it is the most pragmatic way.
So much better and is entirely innocent. That's my stance on it. You might disagree and say, they said no. They said no. They did say no. I don't have it installed. I uninstalled it immediately because I'm not risking getting banned. There's just no purpose to it. Over in World of Warcraft, can you imagine playing that game with no add-ons? Now, some of you will be like, well, I play with no add-ons.
Oh my God.
I'm going to say, your
no.
way shitter than what I experienced.
Oh my God,
That's
no.
the fact. Like, having things, like, especially considering a lot of the games since day one, this is not a modern thing. This isn't a Dragonflight thing. This isn't a Shadowlands thing.
It would be literally
absolutely
unplayable.
Designed with the very fast-paced, very proactive and reactive gameplay that is in World of Warcraft, far, far, far quicker than what you'll find in FF14, is designed because you should know these things happen, that horrible spells are casting, being able to mark mobs very quickly in massive packs because you can pull extraordinarily large things with huge amounts of things going on. This is just in dungeons and things like that because they kind of expect that you're going to have something going on. Now, personally, I do think...
So he's saying like World of Warcraft evolved alongside add-ons. So because of that, the game is like caters to it in a way that's more natural for the game design and game philosophy of World of Warcraft. But because Final Fantasy XIV is not designed with add-ons in mind, it's more detrimental, and it's like actually kind of hard to compare the two situations because Final Fantasy XIV is more methodical. It is more about figuring things out for yourself.
Go too far. I'm not on one side or the other here. UI add-ons, all that kind of stuff is fine. I personally would love to see some fights that have stuff like this disabled to see how they do. I'm trying to put together something where we'll see a raid with 0 add-ons. Like, how do people perform under those pressures? Because it creates all sorts of weird situations where the race or people interested in the race are saying it's not competitive because people just can't have add-on creators on standby. We don't have a payroll to make that happen. But at the same time, do I want to see things like auction house mods disabled? Not really. Like, the auction house is better, but it's still not great. Do I really want to see my UI disappear? No. And as rightly pointed out by Ian in the interview with Asmon, is that there are things that they have to disable in order to make certain add-ons not work, which have a ripple effect. If we disable this part of the API, which is the code that people use to get add-on information and then relay that back to the player, if we disable part of that, then no longer do you have things like a slightly better health bar. Is that what you really want? Because I imagine a lot of people don't. It's a very fine line and no easy answer. And it's something that I think all devs need to keep an eye on. And these blanket wipeout statements that I'm seeing from people is like, it should just be a flat-out no.
That's totally the stupidest thing that you can say about this, I think. I think that's the worst take that someone can have, is just to say, oh, well, because it's all against the terms of service, they should just ban every single person that they're aware of that uses the add-on. I think that's probably the worst possible way to deal with the situation. And it seems that Square Enix agrees, because if they didn't agree, they would have done that already. They let it exist in this gray area because one thing I brought up in my video talking about this is that a lot of people use add-ons as accessibility tools. And I would certainly hate to see all those people that are using add-ons like quality of life stuff that makes the game like easier to see, makes certain mechanics easier to see. It makes the game playable for them. I think it would be extremely wrong. It's just straight up wrong. Maybe it would be legal, but sometimes the legal thing isn't the right thing.
I totally disagree with. It's not something that can just be destroyed in a heartbeat and then everybody's happy, because you're going to upset a lot of people, and I don't think that's necessary. What you need to do is probably take a proactive approach in this. FF14 for me is 2 hands-on. WoW is 2 hands-off. There's a place in the middle that can maybe make this work. But maybe, if we're at the point in WoW, which we are now, where you're literally having to pay teams of people to try and nullify mechanics, because that's what they're doing.
That's an interesting thing you said. FF14 is 2 hands-on, WoW is 2 hands-off.
Actively trying to make mechanics not a problem. That kind of sucks, because they've proven, and I think Holondrus would be the best example here, Holondrus didn't require any add-ons.
What?
The raid leaders were practically useless there. It was a game of personal play. They can absolutely design fights like that in World of Warcraft, and they can make it work. Can they do them all the time? No. They can't do them all the time. WoW isn't acceptable to that. It wouldn't be a great time if everything was just like, okay, now we just need to carry bombs or whatever. Like, there's a limited scope in that environment to make that work. They would have to redesign how the bosses work, like animation-wise. You say FF14 does it. FF14 bosses work entirely differently. They work entirely differently and designed around the idea from the get-go, from day one, that there's no add-ons involved. World of Warcraft is not like that. Like, you can't visually, like, they can't even make the jailer walk properly, right? He's like slides across the floor. Let alone can he give very, very distinct animations as to what he's doing without everything being a slow build-up, which is not conducive to that game.
It's hard to compare the two situations. They are two extremes.
There's a middle ground here. There's a middle ground. And yeah, part of it is selfish. Of course I want chat bubbles back in FF14, and I wouldn't mind not seeing ridiculous... I wouldn't see raids come to a stop while add-ons get made, so we can get around this mechanic. Like, there's a fine line in the middle. But I'd love to see your thoughts on it, guys. Let me know what you think. Bye-bye.
So, while I think that the line is probably more clear, it's very interesting perspective on how these two games are so different that I don't think I thought about it as much before I seen this video. The fact that World of Warcraft depends so heavily on add-ons that you could even argue that a lot of the game development has relied on that. But Final Fantasy 14 being the polar opposite, where there is like QOL stuff that needs to be. There's like accessibility stuff that needs to be, that's like really, really important. That's not harming other people. It's not affecting gameplay. That needs to be. So we have like these two total extremes, and each comes with their own unique problems. And I think that each extreme also reflects the way that the games are, like what the fights feel like. You know, like you mentioned, having add-on information, like mechanics called out to you the instant that they go off. This is more conducive to a battle environment where it depends more on your reflexes and like moving extremely quickly and like just being constantly on alert and just being ready to move at like as soon as possible. Final Fantasy 14 is really more of a dance. It's more like a choreographed experience where you're planning ahead, you're reading patterns. It is more like, I want to say it's more methodical. It's not all about reflexes, though it can be about that to a degree for certain mechanics. And so I think you can see how these are two totally different game environments